You've been lied to about your worth your entire life. They told you it comes from your job title, your bank account, your relationship status, how many people validate you on social media, how attractive your partner is, how much your friends respect you. And so you've spent years, maybe decades, chasing external metrics, trying to prove to the world that you matter, that you're valuable, that you're enough. But here's the truth that ancient philosophers discovered thousands of years ago, a truth so powerful it terrified empires. Your worth isn't something you earn. It's not something anyone can give you. And critically, it's not something anyone can take away. Unless you let them. Stay with me. Because what you're about to discover isn't feel-good nonsense or empty affirmations. This is ancient wisdom forged in the fires of slavery, exile, persecution, and war. This is how men who had nothing, who were stripped of everything, maintained unshakable self-worth that made them legends. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why knowing your worth is the single most important thing you'll ever learn. Let me show you what I mean. Answer these questions honestly. Do you check your phone compulsively to see if people responded to you? Do you feel diminished when someone doesn't acknowledge you? Do you change your opinions based on who's in the room? Do you stay quiet when you should speak because you fear judgment? Do you tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of losing people? Do you measure your day by whether others validated you? If you answered yes to any of these, you've outsourced your worth. You've handed the most valuable thing you possess, your sense of self-value, to other people, to circumstances, to metrics that change with the wind. And brother, you're not alone. We're living through a crisis of self-worth. Men today are more anxious, more depressed, more uncertain of their value than perhaps any generation in history. Why? Because we've been conditioned to seek worth externally. The modern world is designed to make you feel inadequate, so you'll keep consuming, keep chasing, keep trying to buy or earn your way to feeling valuable. But the ancient philosophers knew something we've forgotten. True worth is internal, unshakable, immune to external circumstances. Let me take you back to ancient Rome, 1st century AD, to a man named Epictetus. Epictetus was born into slavery. He was property. His master was Epaphroditus, a cruel man who reportedly broke Epictetus's leg, either through torture or neglect. Historians aren't sure. This man had nothing, no freedom, no rights, no possessions. He could be beaten, sold, or killed at his master's whim. And yet, Epictetus became one of the most influential philosophers in human history. His teachings shaped Roman emperors, inspired generations of thinkers, and survive today as some of the most powerful wisdom on human dignity ever written. How? Because Epictetus understood something his master never could. External circumstances cannot touch your internal worth. He taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that. A slave teaching about freedom. A man with no external power teaching about mastery. He understood that true worth, the kind that matters, exists in a realm beyond circumstances. He wrote, "You are not your body. You are not your possessions. You are not your reputation. You are the faculty of choice itself, and that cannot be enslaved unless you consent to it." Epictetus had nothing. The world values. No wealth, no status, no freedom. Yet he possessed everything that matters. Self-knowledge, dignity, and unshakable worth that no one could steal. Now fast forward a century, to the most powerful man in the world, Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. Marcus had everything Epictetus lacked: wealth, power, armies, and empire. Yet he studied Epictetus obsessively. Why would the most powerful man in the world study the words of a former slave? Because Marcus understood that external power means nothing if you don't have internal sovereignty. Every night, after dealing with wars, plagues, betrayals, and the crushing weight of empire, Marcus wrote in his journal. These writings, never meant for publication, became the Times, Meditations Times, one of the greatest books on human worth ever written. He wrote, "Your worth is measured by what you devote your soul to, not your title, not your conquests, not how many people bow to you, but what you choose to value, to honor, to give your attention and energy to." Marcus also wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Read that again. Your estimate of it, your interpretation, your judgment. Marcus, with all the external validation the world could offer, knew that his worth came from within, from his character, from his choices, from how he responded to life, not from what life gave him. Modern psychology has spent decades catching up to what these ancient philosophers already knew. Dr. Kristin Neff, a pioneering researcher in self-compassion, distinguishes between self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem is contingent. It goes up and down based on performance, comparison, and external validation. Self-worth is unconditional. It's the recognition that you have inherent value simply by existing as a human being, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. Psychologist Carl Rogers, founder of humanistic psychology, called this unconditional positive regard. He discovered that people flourish when they receive acceptance without conditions, and critically, when they learn to give this to themselves. The problem is, most people never develop this. From childhood, we're taught conditional worth. You're good when you get A's. You're valuable when you succeed. You're lovable when you please others. This creates what psychologists call contingent self-worth. Your value fluctuates based on external metrics. And it's exhausting, because external circumstances are beyond your control. The ancient philosophers understood this intuitively. They taught that basing your worth on externals is a form of slavery. You're chained to things you cannot control. The Stoics had a framework that's incredibly powerful for understanding worth. They called it the dichotomy of control. There are things within your control: your thoughts, your judgments, your character, your choices, your responses, your values, your effort. And there are things outside your control: other people's opinions, outcomes, circumstances, your past, other people's behavior, luck, timing. Epictetus taught, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Here's how this applies to worth. If you base your worth on things outside your control, what others think of you, whether you succeed or fail, how circumstances unfold, you're building your identity on sand. It shifts, it crumbles, it disappears. But if you base your worth on what's within your control, your integrity, your effort, your character, your values you've built on bedrock, nothing can touch it. This is why Epictetus, the slave, was free, and why so many wealthy, powerful people today are enslaved. They've anchored their worth to externals, and externals are tyrannical masters. Let's journey east, to ancient China, to a philosopher named Zhuangzi, who lived in the 4th century BC. Zhuangzi told a story about a tree so twisted and gnarled that no carpenter would use it for timber, because it was useless. By conventional standards, it was never cut down. It grew to massive size, providing shade for thousands. The tree's worth wasn't in its utility to others. Its worth was intrinsic. It existed, and that was enough. Zhuangzi taught that humans are the same. Your worth isn't in how useful you are to others, how much money you make, how many problems you solve, what value you provide. Those things are good, but they're not the source of your worth. Your worth is inherent. Like the tree, you exist, and existence itself has dignity. He wrote, "The wise man knows that the greatest carving does the least cutting." Meaning, stop trying to carve yourself into what others want. Stop cutting away pieces of yourself to fit into boxes others have created. Your worth is in your authentic nature, not in how well you conform. Now, to 19th century Germany, to Friedrich Nietzsche, perhaps the most controversial philosopher who ever lived. Nietzsche had a brutal message about worth. He said that most people never discover their true worth because they spend their entire lives conforming to what he called slave morality, the values imposed by society to keep people compliant. He wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." Nietzsche taught that discovering your worth requires what he called the revaluation of all values. You must question everything you've been taught about what makes someone valuable. Society says, be agreeable, be useful, be conventional, fit in, don't make waves. Nietzsche said, this is how you lose yourself, how you become mediocre, how you sacrifice your authentic worth for the approval of people who don't matter. He introduced the concept of the Übermensch, not a superhuman, but someone who creates their own values, who defines their own worth, who doesn't need external validation because they've become their own authority. He wrote, "You have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist." Your worth isn't found in conforming to someone else's standard. It's found in being courageously, authentically yourself, even when the world tells you you're wrong. Let me bring this down to earth, to your life, right now. You're in a conversation. Someone says something you disagree with, but you stay quiet. Why? Because you're afraid that speaking up will make you less likable, less accepted, less valued. In that moment, you've traded your worth for approval. You've said silently, "My truth is less valuable than their comfort." Or, you're in a relationship that's slowly killing you, but you stay because you're afraid of being alone, afraid that leaving proves you're not enough, not worthy of love. In that moment, you've anchored your worth to being chosen by someone, anyone, rather than choosing yourself. Or, someone disrespects you, crosses a boundary, treats you as less than, and you tolerate it because you're afraid of conflict, afraid of losing them. In that moment, you've declared, "My dignity is less important than keeping the peace." These are the everyday moments where worth is won or lost. Not in grand gestures, but in small choices. Do you honor yourself? Or do you betray yourself for external approval? Let's look at another tradition. Buddhism, 6th century BC. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. The Buddha taught something radical. The self you're trying to prove is worthy doesn't even exist in the way you think it does. You're not a fixed, permanent entity that can be measured and valued. You're a flowing process, constantly changing. So attaching your worth to a fixed identity, "I am successful, I am attractive, I am important," is inherently flawed, because that identity is always temporary, always changing. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from attachment to a self-concept. You build an image of who you are, then spend your life defending it, proving it, maintaining it, and it's exhausting. Instead, he taught, let go of the need to be somebody. Recognize that your fundamental nature awareness itself is already complete, already valuable, already enough. You don't need to earn your worth. You need to stop believing the illusion that you don't have it. He said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Not when you achieve something, not when someone validates you. Right now, as you are, you deserve your own love and respect. Let's go to a tradition often overlooked, Ubuntu, from Southern African philosophy. Ubuntu is often translated as I am because we are. It's the recognition that human worth is interconnected. You're not valuable in isolation, but you're not valuable only because of what you provide either. Ubuntu teaches that every person has inherent dignity, not earned, not proven, but given simply by being human, and recognizing the humanity in others reflects back your own humanity. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who championed Ubuntu philosophy, explained, "A person is a person through other persons. My humanity is caught up in yours. When I dehumanize you, I inexorably dehumanize myself." This is profound. Your worth isn't dependent on others, but it's also not isolated from others. You're valuable because you're human, and so is everyone else. This prevents two extremes: the arrogance of thinking you're better than others, and the self-debasement of thinking you're worth less. Ubuntu teaches equal, inherent worth. So how do you actually internalize this? How do you move from intellectually understanding your worth to viscerally knowing it? First, identify your values, not others' expectations. Marcus Aurelius asked, "What is your art? To be good." What do you value? Not what should you value, not what others say you should value, but what actually matters to you when you strip away all the noise. Write them down. Honesty, courage, creativity, growth, whatever they are. These become your internal compass, your measure of worth. Second, live according to those values regardless of outcome. Epictetus taught that your worth is in your choices, not your results. You can control effort, not outcome. Did you act with integrity today? Did you honor your values? Did you do what you believed was right, even when it was hard? If yes, you were worthy today. The external results don't matter. Third, practice self-compassion, not self-judgment. The Buddha and modern psychology agree. Harsh self-judgment doesn't improve you, it diminishes you. When you fail, and you will, don't attack your worth. Recognize, I'm human, I made a mistake, I can learn from this. Your worth isn't in being perfect, it's in being human. Fourth, set boundaries based on self-respect. Nietzsche's challenge, own yourself, don't give yourself away. When someone disrespects you, your worth demands a response, not revenge, but boundary setting. That's not acceptable. When you tolerate disrespect, you're telling yourself, I'm not worth defending, and you internalize that message. Fifth, stop seeking validation, offer it to yourself. Zhuangzi's lesson, you don't need others to confirm your value. Instead of asking, do they think I'm good enough? Ask, do I respect the person I'm becoming? Make yourself your own primary source of validation. Not exclusively, we're social creatures, but primarily. Here's a paradox the ancient philosophers understood. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, people value you more. Why? Because desperation to prove yourself signals insecurity, but quiet confidence in your inherent worth signals strength. It's not about arrogance. Arrogance is insecurity dressed up as confidence. Real self-worth is humble. You don't need to prove anything because you're secure in who you are. Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, when you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. Not because you're performing for them, but because you're not. You're grounded, authentic, unmoved by external opinion. And that's magnetic. But hear this, knowing your worth will cost you. It will cost you relationships with people who only valued you for what you provided. It will cost you opportunities that required you to compromise your dignity. It will cost you the comfort of fitting in when fitting in means betraying yourself. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, wrote, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." Most people live their entire lives in this quiet despair, never quite themselves, never quite authentic, always performing, always proving, always seeking worth outside themselves. Knowing your worth means stepping off that stage. And some people won't like it. They'll call you arrogant, selfish, difficult. Let them, because the alternative is dying with your worth unclaimed, living someone else's life, spending your one existence trying to be enough for people who will never be satisfied. The ancient philosophers across continents, across centuries, across cultures all discovered the same truth. Your worth is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. You were born with inherent dignity, inherent value, inherent worth. Life then spent years conditioning you to forget this, to seek it externally, to believe the lie that you're not enough until someone or something tells you you are. But it was always there, waiting for you to reclaim it. Epictetus, the slave who was freer than his master, Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who knew power meant nothing without character, Zhuangzi, the sage who found worth in authenticity, not utility, Nietzsche, the rebel who taught men to create their own values, Buddha, the awakened one who saw through the illusion of self entirely. They all pointed to the same truth. You are enough, right now, not when you achieve more, not when someone validates you. Now, the question isn't whether you're worthy, you are. The question is, will you honor that worth? Will you protect it? Will you live as if it's true? So here's what I want you to do. For the next 7 days, conduct an experiment. Act as if your worth is unquestionable, not arrogantly but certainly. When someone disrespects you, respond from that worth. Set a boundary. When you face a choice, ask, what would someone who values themselves do? When you're tempted to seek validation, pause. Give it to yourself first. Watch what happens, not to impress others, but to reclaim yourself. Because knowing your worth isn't about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who you always were before the world taught you to doubt it. The philosophers knew this. They lived it. They died knowing they were worthy, not because they achieved something, but because they chose to honor their inherent dignity every single day. Now it's your turn. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because we're building a community of men who refuse to betray themselves, who refuse to trade their worth for approval, who know deeply, unshakably that they're enough. Ancient wisdom, modern application, unshakable worth. I'll see you in the next one. Now go claim what's already yours.